Jenna, we got 2 callers.
Awesome.
Take our first one.
Go for it.
I don't see a name on this, but it says something about self-image and ductwork. You're on with Jenna and Ethan.
Hi.
Of course they didn't put my name. It's Eve. Hi.
Eve. Your
Hi,
name
Eve.
never works.
I don't know. I literally have no idea. Yeah, so I wanted to start by saying that I definitely don't want to like down talk sex work too much because like it definitely has been like a really positive force in my life, I think overall. But since this is like a mental health and sex work kind of topic, I think it is important to talk about, like you guys were saying earlier, some of the ways in which sex work can negatively impact your life in that way. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I think conversely, I know, Ethan, you were saying earlier that you think maybe sometimes if you're going for money, that can be bad. And I think I disagree that that is necessarily the bad thing. I think actually the amount of money you can make in sex work is like, well, I guess if maybe it is enabling you in some way, that could be an issue.
Sorry, real quick, Eve. I just want to, if I misspoke, I apologize. I meant when they're doing it not for the money, but out of desperation because they have no other options.
I hear you, but at the same time, so like I'm trans and I lost my old job, like, well, actually I quit because the conditions were really bad, like a year and a half ago or so.
Okay.
And in order to afford like transition expenses, like surgeries and hormones and things, I was kind of in a position where it was like my only option, but it was also like really liberating for me because having mental illness and stuff, like I was able to work from home. I wasn't beholden to somebody else's schedule. Like I wasn't in one of those situations where like I had to promise 3 Thursdays from now I'll be mentally well enough to, you know, spend 8 hours at whatever place. But on the other hand, though, I do think there are some aspects of sex work that can be pretty damaging, like having your kind of self-worth based on your physical appearance and how well you appeal to a certain like flavor of like straight men is like,
yeah,
it's really toxic for like your self-image and like how you're aspiring to like change yourself.
May I ask you a question, Eve?
Yeah, of course.
Well, what is it like being trans in the sex work industry? Like, what type of, I guess, a trouble do you run into with, like straight men?
Sure. I mean, there's like a number of things. I think some of them are probably not so specific to me being trans. Like I'll have a lot of customers who are like married or something.
Okay.
But I think that happens for every sex worker. I think it's just, I don't know, a different like focus for them. But like it is really difficult in certain ways when like how I engage with my body and how I engage with my sexuality is one thing, and how these people want and expect me to engage with them is very different and based on like decades of porn that I'm sure they've been watching that
stereotypes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
they kind of assume because you have the body part they do that you want to use it the same way that they would want to use it. It's really, I'm like, wow, that's a bold assumption. I love when they come in and they're like, "Ooh, I bet you'd love it if I did this, huh? Wouldn't you?" I'm like, "Oh man, I would love to just sit here and like take a nap while you gave me money, but sure, if that's what it's gonna take, that's fine."
You know, I was one of my conservative friends had shared a post from I'm trying to remember the doctor's name, but she was advocating for teaching porn literacy because unfortunately there are people who watch porn and look for ideas, and they'll try and utilize the things they see in real life when at times it's not really an accurate portrayal of how everyone has sex. So it's important
For sure.
to recognize that what they're doing, they do to just make it look good on camera. It's not about maximizing pleasure for either person. And if we taught that, I think people would understand it better and then not necessarily get their advice from porn.
Oh, definitely. I think there's a really big issue where I think the sexual fantasies that people have are probably normal and even okay and like fine to be indulged in, but people extrapolate that and they think that therefore it's okay to try to like, and I mean, if it's all consenting adults in the situation, then it's not a problem. But I think there's a lot of situations where they want to replicate those fantasies in real life, and it's not exactly transferable the way they want it to be, at least.
Yeah, I think this is actually a good time to plug Secular Sexuality is a show that is put on every Thursday night by the ACA on YouTube. I think it's at 7 or 7:30. And one of their tagline, I love it, is "Your kink is not my kink, but your kink is okay." Love that.
Yeah.
And if I recall, Eve, you have been on Secular Sexuality, correct?
Yeah, I've been on twice talking about being a cam girl, and there has been still some kind of inner workings. It's complicated, I guess, of maybe doing some extra work with them, like some sex education stuff. But yeah, I mean, I love talking about trans rights and sex workers' rights and all that stuff. So I'm always willing to hop on a show and ramble for however long.
Awesome.
For those watching, this would be the great time to plug it. I have been trying to put together a roundtable on sex work, and I know, Jenna, you were interested. Eve, you were interested, but I was only able to find one other person. So if either of you know anyone that would be interested in joining the roundtable, or anyone in the audience, please let me know, because I am struggling to find enough people to fill up the seats for this roundtable.
I think we can find you someone.
Yeah, please. I could
Yeah.
use 2 or 3 people.
Cool.
Did you
Awesome.
have like a specific like thing you were looking for? Like, did you want them in a certain area of sex work, or?
Any. I just, obviously the more diverse, the better, like with different, if like we had a dancer versus someone doing OnlyFans versus someone who is, prostituting, it would be nice to have people from different walks of life. So yeah, anyone that would be interested, I could use the help.
I think people would be amazed if everybody came out about their sex work. I don't know how many times somebody would find out that I was a sex worker in a job that I had. And then people would like come up to me and be like, whisper and be like, "Hey, I've done something like that too." And it's like so many times I'm like, God, there's just people everywhere that they just don't tell anyone because they're afraid of being shamed. And they probably would be shamed. And it's amazing. A sex worker. I don't care who you are. A sex worker, and you probably care about one.
I know plenty of sex workers, but that's mainly because most of them feel comfortable enough to open up to me because I'm not going to judge them for it.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I try not to judge anybody for anything except how they treat other people. Oh, best name. Yes, I did ask Rudy. Rudy is interested, so I would
Cool.
still need 2 to 3 more people.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Did you have anything else that you think that people should know about your experience in the industry that maybe people don't think about? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's a good question. Gosh, I mean, I think just generally, I wish people would. Well, I wish we as a culture would do a better job educating people on sex and how sexuality works, like even like a neurological level. I think talking about like how normal sexual fantasies are would be great, because I think we would have a lot less issues of some of these more extreme and kind of like violent fantasies if people were comfortable being like, hey, just because I had that fantasy that seems taboo and wrong socially in my head, it doesn't mean I want to like necessarily do that to a person in real life.
Right.
Yeah, it's
That,
just fantasy.
Yes.
right. Yeah, I think people just need to be given a lot more freedom to express their honest sexual feelings and like understand that that doesn't necessarily mean like, I don't know, it doesn't represent some like deep inner part of their psyche. Like it can just be something that they want to enjoy, and that's okay.
Okay. Well, so I'll take advantage of this to say that I have always had fantasies where, like, as a kid growing up, I would dream and really get off on being raped. Now, I don't actually want to be raped. It was a thing where what I think is that I think that I was sexually oppressed in the kind of the Christian upbringing. You're never allowed to touch anyone. You're never allowed to let anyone touch you, anything like that until you get married. I think that that was the only way that I could fantasize about it in my mind without feeling guilty, without feeling like I was doing something wrong, because, hey, it's just happening to me, you know? And I think that that might have actually warped it to be that way in my mind. What do you think about that, Eve?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really normal. I don't know if you've ever, there are a few really good books on like sex and psychology. I'm blanking on the name of the one that I'm thinking of right now, but it's by an author, Esther Perel. And she actually talks about rape fantasies and like group sex fantasies and how a lot of women feel shame around having them because they seem so extreme and almost like misogynistic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I love how this author put it, where she was like, well, if you think about it, in this fantasy, you are casting, you know, the people who are doing this to you. You are deciding the actions that they do to you. You're deciding how you respond to them. Like, while yes, it's a scenario of like power dynamic that is like coming from this concept in your mind, in actuality, how you're feeling it and expressing it is very consensual and not, it doesn't actually involve a loss of consent. So I think people should not feel so guilty and should just be like, I'm turned on right now. This is what I'm thinking about. This seems like this is what's going to get me off. Like, as long as no one else is being harmed in the process, then it shouldn't really matter.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. I am only asking this question based on the little experience I have with, this is only personal experience. Do you think there is some type of tie between people who have had more abusive upbringings and the type of sex they're into? For example, I've noticed, a good chunk of people that I've engaged with, the more traumatic upbringing they've had, the more they fantasize about rougher scenarios.
So to kind of justify that, I think that that may be true. I actually was raped before, and after that, didn't get any kind of like psychological pain from it. And that confused the hell out of me. I was like, why do I not feel traumatized? Why do I not feel like anything happened? And what I think it is that I had that kind of a traumatic upbringing enough to where my brain was already in that fight or flight mode 24/7. I was already traumatized. And it was almost like that helped me realize how bad my state of mind was, because after I started helping myself, that's when nightmares started happening. And those nightmares were actually more traumatic than the actual event, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Jenna, I'm sorry.
I mean, it is what it is, but thank you. But Eve, what about you?
I think, I think that's definitely, I mean, I don't have any like actual data on that, so I don't want to say firmly that.
Yes, none of us are professionals,
I think,
on mental health.
What?
Just a disclaimer. None of us are professional mental health workers. We are peers only.
Yes. I mean, from my perspective, I definitely, my dad, when I was growing up, tried to force me to watch like porn, like quite a bit to, I don't know, buoy me up or something. Failed dramatically, but I can definitely say that in response, I think some of my personal sexual tendencies probably do come from that kind of like sexual exposure or sexual environment. So I do think, yeah, like what people are exposed to as children, and well, not even just as children, like growing up at in general, can drastically impact your sexual preferences. But I also think on that note that like maybe that compartmentalizing it in a sexual way might be like almost a healthy response to those things. You're kind of like taking those situations and putting them into something that you not only are in control of, but that you can enjoy too.
Right. You know, so the reason I kind of brought that up was when I was 5 years old, I was forced to watch a porn. And like it was fucking awkward, man. It was like this older teenage dude up the street, and I was there with like my younger friend. He's like, you guys have to sit down and watch this. And then after we watched it, he asked if we wanted to try those things. And my friend was a year younger than me. He was like 4. And he was like, I could tell he was more jarred than I was. So I just immediately, like, I grabbed him. I'm like, hey, it's time to go home. So I grabbed him and we walked home. And that night I'm sitting down at the dinner table, just like playing with my food in my own zone. And then my grandma, like, she knew something was wrong. She pulled me aside and I told her what happened. And, you know, they immediately went to the kid's parents. But the reason I bring this up is because what I had seen in that video is something now in my adult life that turns me on. So would I be into the things I am currently into had I not seen that video? And I don't think so. I think when I saw that video, it did something to my brain that turned it into a turn on for me.
I think there's a reason that we don't expose kids to sex until a certain age, in general.
Yeah.
Kids are so impressionable. That's complicated. I mean, I feel like we would have to bring on some kind of psychologist.
That's what we need to do one episode, Jenna.
Yeah.
I'm like a psychologist and go over stuff, especially because
there's actually
specializes in mental health.
We actually have a follower who messaged me. I'll have to get her back, but she is on the board of medicine in California. And she said that she wanted to be a resource if we needed it. So I'll have to get with her and see if she wants to be on a show and we can talk about that, because that's just so interesting, the psychology behind it. Like I like being choked. I don't know if that has to do with any kind of, like, I wasn't choked in my childhood, but I was spanked. So
I mean,
I
was choked too.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I know. I can't believe I just said that publicly.
I'm proud of you, Ethan.
I don't like talking about my kinks publicly. It's so like I'm not supposed to do that.
I'm glad that you feel free to. You know, this is why we created this show. Is so I mean, I've never shared half of the stuff I've shared today, you know, but I think this is important that we expose how normal this is. Genuinely, I don't know how many times I brought this up going like, hey guys, so like this is how I feel. And people like, oh yeah, me too. I'm like, really? Huh. That's normal. Yeah. Interesting. It's normal.
Yeah, actually too, on the note of like book of things to like educate yourself with that, the book that I mentioned earlier, Bethany put it in the chat. It's Mating in Captivity. And another great one is Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. Those are 2 great books if you're feeling like confused about like your sexuality or like how normal a sexual thing you're experiencing is.
Awesome.
Totally deconstruct like sexuality psychologically. They're like research based. They're great books.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great call.
I agree.
We do got to get to our next one, but Eve, I just went to send you a message on Facebook and I am blanking on your name. Would you mind just sending me a message again so I can loop you into a chat with the few other people for the
Yeah, of course.
SW roundtable? Awesome.
You got it.
Thank you, Eve.
Thank you for calling, even for being so open and honest. That's very, very helpful.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Yay.